Hi guys, this is Tim from Alive Designs. There's been a few questions asked lately about how to turn your offcut metal, scrap silver into an ingot to then do something with later on, and some discussions about the silver not melting or having difficulty with it, making it pour. I'm no expert, but I do this sometimes with my scrap silver, so I thought I'd document the process. I just want to make an ingot today to practice some stone setting with. It seemed like an ideal time to put the camera on and show you guys how I do it. Caveat, I'm not an expert at this. I do it the way that I do it. Feel free to try it at home if you think it'll help you. If you've got a better way, then more than happy to hear some suggestions. So the tools I'm going to be using is the trusty Sievert torch. This one's got a nozzle with 3941p on the top. It's the biggest nozzle that I own. I've got one of these little casting blocks from Ooops, I think. It was one of the cheap ones. I do struggle with it sometimes, but I think that's more me than the actual block. It's adjustable, as you can see, so you can make it really big or small, but as we haven't got an awful lot of silver there, it's reasonably small today. I've got some general purpose really cheap oil, which probably came from Poundland or somewhere. I've got my scrap zinc silver. In the crucible, you can see this reddy tinge. This is where I've used it before and added some flux to it. Yeah, that's about it really. The flux that I'm going to use is borax. So this is one of the old cones that I had. I don't tend to use this for anything other than sprinkling onto silver for casting nowadays. But I just ground it with a knife and a file and made a powder out of it, and if you add it to your silver, then it helps the silver to melt and the impurities rise to the top. So first things first, let's move anything flammable out of the way. This little thing here, ideally, I think it would be best if it was hot when the hot silver goes into it. It makes sense because the really hot silver hitting something really cold, it solidifies straight away. The problem is, if you heat it with a torch, then it tends to burn and bubble the paint, which is pretty smelly. So that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, but I will waft a torch over it just to take the extreme cold temperature off. And the other thing I like to do is just to add a little bit of oil. I mean, I'm talking a tiny bit, and I just find that helps the silver to fall in there. Now, I am right-handed, so I'm going to try and pour like that. It makes sense for me to have this that way round. I'll move some of this stuff around as we get the silver melted. First thing I'm going to do is make a little kind of cove for the silver. Now, this is just so that the heat reflects from the torch better, and it really does help to increase the efficiency of melting the silver. So my silver's various different sizes, including quite a big lump there that's going to take a considerable amount of melting. That obviously came from a previous casting that I made, and this is the sprue. I can't remember what it's called. Anyway, that there's a bezel there which is made out of fine silver, so obviously that's higher than sterling silver, and of course there will be a tiny bit of solder in there as well. I've never really had a problem with it. Certainly you can still get it assayed. I think the fine silver that's in the bezel wire will counteract any negative effects of the solder, which is hallmarkable anyway. So I'm going to light the torch, sprinkle some flux onto it, and then melt the silver. Hopefully it won't take too long. I might cut the video if it gets really boring, but let's see how we get on. So I just warm the silver up first of all, and then I'm going to sprinkle a little bit of flux all over everything. I'm just going to use circular motions. Oh, now this does happen with this torch. If you open the gas too high and the temperature is too cold, it does go out. So you've got to kind of find a happy medium between it doing the job for you and it failing, basically. So you can see that the smaller pieces of silver are beginning to melt already. They're only kind of maybe 0.3 mil thick, something like that, maybe half a mil thick. That big lump is going to take forever, so we'll just see how we get on. But yeah, it shouldn't take too long. What I've noticed is there's a little bit of black here. I'm not really sure what it is, but it's not silver. Oh no, it looks like it's just going to be ashes. Okay, that's no problem. There we go. You see, I don't know whether this is a fault of something I'm doing, or whether it is just, deprived of oxygen or too cold or something. I'm going to lift up the whole lump now because the flux has melted a little bit on the bottom of the crucible, and it just benefits sometimes from being heated from a few different sides. Okay, so our silver's flowing quite nicely in the crucible now, but you can still see lumps and bumps in it, and obviously this is where not everything is melted, despite the fact that it moves freely. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to keep the torch on it just to keep the residual heat, but I'm going to move the mould a little bit closer, and then some of that residual heat will go, or some of the heat, sorry, will go into the mould. And I'm just going to keep moving the silver around, making sure that any impurities stick to the edge of the crucible, and making sure that the crucible itself is hot. You see how quickly it solidifies when you move your torch away. And that's the challenge you have when you're pouring. What we want it to do is to be like a rolling coil. See all the little bits in the top, hopefully. We want them to be moving around really freely, no sticky bits. The best bit of advice that I've ever given about doing this sort of thing was, once you think it's ready, once you've got a rolling coil, once it swirls around the crucible properly, and you're about to pour, stop, give it another minute. So that's what I'm going to do, I'm going to give it another minute-ish. I reckon we're not far off, so I'm going to slowly lift it up. I'm going to keep the flame on it as much as I can, and then I'm going to pour it in one swift movement and hope for the best. Okay, so here we go. 3, 2, 1. judge the amount of silver there by the looks of things, if everything's gone to plan. If it hasn't gone to plan, then we've not gone down into the mould. If it has gone to the plan, then I'm going to have to melt this other silver another time. I'm going to let the red go out of that before I touch it. I am going to touch this mould and see, yeah, that's not hot at all. So let's open up the clamp and see what we've got. There we go. So we now have a fairly reasonable block of silver that I can cut the end off, pass through the rolling mill and then use. So hope this has been useful for you, and maybe I'll see you again another time. Cheers guys, bye.